Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, team, we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I know we have two. I'm sure other folks may be showing up, but I want to be mindful of your time. We'll go ahead and share screen. So, as everybody knows, today is the Pragmatic Project Management for Everyone, part of the Research Productivity Workshop. Today is March 18th, 2025. So the purpose of today is to provide an overview of project management best practices. A little bit of my background. I'm a retired Marine. I spent about 28 years of service, and then I've been here at the University of Arizona as a data science, here at the Data Science Institute as a program manager. Um, and I've been here just over 2 years, and I'm loving it. So I just want to provide, some best practices that I've seen in my past, and then what I've been um, uh, implementing since I've been here at the Data Science Institute. Here are the agenda items. So we have references I'll be going over, quick planning snapshot, because I give this as a series. So the last session was on planning, and then I'll do project management overview, get into the best practices, and then hopefully we get some dialogue. And then I just want to show an example of using generative AI. And as of now, I mean, a lot of people are probably accustomed of maybe at least throwing in a prompt into ChatGPT to help them with their day-to-day functions. So I just want to provide an example of maybe as a project manager, a way to prompt and maybe get something that you may need out of that generative AI tool. Expectation management, and then discussion, and then get into questions. Okay, here are the references. So I have project management body of knowledge guide and the process groups, a practice guide. These are both from the Project Management Institute. I do have my project management professional certification that I received back in September of 2023. And so a lot of the resources that Project Management Institute does have, they're extremely useful and practical, and a lot of times very pragmatic in being able to implement in your day-to-day functions as a project manager or otherwise as a leader. Um, have the Emperor's Handbook, Marcus Aurelius, just a lot of great insights of leadership. Blink, Malcolm Gladwell. Really like this book. One of the things it draws out is biases. Those are your biases, and then others as well. But Malcolm Gladwell puts you through a couple exercises in his book for you to draw out your own biases. And then Agile Practice Guide, also from the Project Management Institute. So planning snapshot. So um, where are we at in the planning process? So as you can see here, here's the project life cycle. You can kind of see the way it lines up with a project life cycle, starting the project, organizing and preparing, carrying out the work, and then ending the project. And then here are the process groups, right? So you have initiating processes, whatever that may be, um, wherever you are in the functions of your day to day, that initiates you saying that, hey, I have a project or I have something that I need to plan. Then you get into your planning processes, which we went over the last session. And then for this one, executing processes and beyond, this is where I see project management taking over. So project management overview. So right from the project management body of knowledge, here's how they define project management. Project management is that application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. And then, why is project management important? And I just view this as, It helps the team organize. It helps you monitor and control those tasks and deliverables. And if you have planned out the actual project, it should be over maybe a phasing construct. Maybe you're looking at critical milestones, things of that nature that need to be hit along the way. So project management allows you to organize your team around those deliverables. Here is a snapshot of the process groups in a diagram. So as you can see, I have those initiating and planning grayed out, and then this is where executing, controlling, monitoring and controlling, and then closing out the project line up. And that's specifically what we're going to be talking about today. So here are some uh, project considerations. So uh, how many of you have used this project management triangle or have at least seen it? Just by a show of hands, maybe the emoji or something. Okay. So project scope, time constraints, and budget. Obviously, okay, good to go. Thank you, Christina. Mickey, thank you. Um, so I'm not gonna belabor that point. At the end of the day, it's like, talking with that stakeholder and seeing like what's gonna give to be able to then deliver the quality that they're looking for and just building expectation management to that stakeholder. Is there any strategic importance, need for innovation? The number of external agencies will add complexity to a project very easy. Stability of resource requirements, that could be budget, resources. I mean, it could be a number of things, maybe even infrastructure. Could be computing infrastructure, things of that nature that could be a burden on the team if we don't source it. And then need for integration, the number of departments that are involved, again, brings the complexity, and then the way you're approaching your project management approach in execution, how this is going to be done. Here are some methodologies. I'm not going to be doing a deep dive on methodologies, but I think it's important for us to understand, like, okay, we have predictive, agile, hybrid, and predictive being in manufacturing, construction, and this is typically referenced as like the old waterfall or traditional approach to project management. Agile um, comes in like software development, is primarily where it's used, and then obviously tailored for other projects. So Lab Scrum, we did bring in a speaker that was taking agile, um, let's just say, approaches and then applying them to the academic environment. Um, and a lot of the principles were, if they weren't if they weren't identical, they're pretty close. And then hybrid, the mix of between agile and predictive. And ironically, here being at the Data Science Institute, I've used, and I'll even tell you this, throughout my entire career, even in the military, I feel that I have used hybrid throughout. Because a lot of times, in all projects, there's going to be things that are on a timeline. And the same thing here, even in academic environment, there's going to be limited resources in the with time. It's going to be money, maybe infrastructure, maybe licenses. Something always has an endpoint. Well, that's that predictive piece, right? So, like building a home, once that foundation is done, then that's it. You're not building another foundation. So, a lot of times, what I've seen is there's things that are fixed in just about every project I've ever worked, but there are going to be things that are going to be iterative. The team's going to have to go back and say, okay, that wasn't just quite right. Let's go back and iterate, just like in the agile methodology. So I'm going to get into some project management best practices. So um, one of the things that we've implemented here at the Project Management Institute is a project plan. Yeah, also probably you've heard it as a project charter. And what we've done is we've broken it down in capturing a problem statement. We've captured a mission statement. So like who, what, when, where, and why we're doing something. And the why is very important because that captures a purpose for the entire team of why are we doing something. And uh, during my leadership session, I do talk about the human dynamic. And so giving humans the why and the purpose behind things matters. And Also, like a project scope. So right now I'm working a project, and one of the things that we're looking at is defining the project scope. And that is very important to do that up front. So that way we don't have scope creep, things of that nature. But then we um, capture it on a project plan that everybody's tracking and everybody looks at, reads it before we do a kickoff meeting. So that's the idea, that everybody's on the same page, or pages literally is depending on how long your project plan is. And then capturing that timeline, those milestones. What is the communication plan? Are you going to be on Slack? Um, are you going to be utilizing email a lot? Probably yes, but there's that delicate dance between what goes in Slack, what communicate comes out in email. Recurring meetings, those are those stand-ups. Are you going to be having um, in progress reviews for those stakeholders along the way, things of that nature? Project roles and responsibilities identified, obviously critical, and something that wouldn't be outlandish in any project. You'd want to capture who's doing what, and that just helps the team manage themselves as with respect to who's accomplishing what tasks. Gantt chart. Everybody's seen a Gantt chart, and anybody have not seen a Gantt chart? Okay. Um, so with that Gantt chart, obviously it's just that tool to just be able to capture those folks that are, um, going to be accomplishing certain tasks along what timeline, things of that nature to help you as a project manager or as a leader, to be able to, hold people accountable, and make sure that they're getting the stuff that we've signed up for with respect to the project plan, that they're actually getting done. And it also helps you during stand-up meetings to identify any blockages, anything that may be impeding folks from getting something done, and then as a team, making sure that we're removing those obstacles along the way. Work breakdown structure. Um, this work breakdown structure, um, I've seen it used, um, but a lot of times it's not necessary depending on the level of project that you're dealing with. Large, probably very complicated projects, you're probably going to want to use it. Something that's a little bit more simple, that you could wrap your head around pretty quickly, you're probably not going to need it. And since I've been here, I've not used a work breakdown structure since I've been here at the U of A. There's a racing matrix, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's been consulted, who's been informed, and then a project tracker. So if you're a program manager, you're probably going to have multiple projects that you're working rather than just one. So you're probably going to want to have a project tracker. And then here at the Data Science Institute, at any given time, we're tracking upwards of 20 projects at any given time. So it's a lot, but we do have our project tracker, and it does help. We just put it in Google Sheets, created that, very simple, and we try not to overcomplicate any of this, just because we want to make sure that it's easily followed, and at the end of the day, we just want people to understand what tasks are you assigned, and here's your time limit to getting it done. And at the end of the day, that's what we're after. The other thing we're after is to make sure that people are understanding the larger picture, the bigger picture, so they understand where they fit in. That gives a lot of purpose to our team members as well. Does anybody have any questions about any of these that I've gone over? Anything at all? Is there anything that you currently use, that I didn't list here, that is extremely helpful in your day to day, in the way you accomplish your tasks, or in tracking and monitoring the accomplishment of deliverables? Mickey, go for it. Mickey, I know you're off mute, but I can't hear anything.
Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Um, so I have been using project management for quite a long time, almost like more than 20 odd years now. And
Okay.
I did PMI all sometime in 2004. So the WBS is one thing which I wanted to highlight. This is a very interesting thing because very often in very large projects, this allows us to even manage the cost in terms of cost accounting. That's what I wanted to contribute basically. So if somebody wants to make sure that they want to control the cost to the very precision, this is a tool for that. Because if your WBS is well defined and if you can relate the cost to it very clearly, and the validation for this clarity is that the item should be so well defined that it may be also uh, taking in account the number of days or the time factor as well, so that the services can also be cost accounted in that case, or for the or for the delivery as well. So most of the time, WBS is talking about services, whereas there is a possibility in the project plans. So, to give you an example, in company like Nokia, where we are selling the hardware and the software, so the hardware delivery is also taken as a service. So services are also taken as services, but there are certain components where you can actually take the hardware cost also as one of the items, and they can also be attributed or basically can be accounted inside your project plan itself. That will, so those kind of extreme methodologies can actually help you keep a very precise track of every cost item, be it hardware, software, manpower, anything. So this is what I wanted to share because this is what I've used to that extent when we are working in very large projects like setting up the mobile network for a nationwide level, where we have the hardware teams, the software teams, the manpower for implementation. They are working together in pan India kind of a basis, and I did get a chance to set up Airtel, which is the second largest mobile network in globe. So there I've seen these WBS become very uh, crucial in terms of managing the timeline as well as the cost.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Mickey. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that. That's
thank you.
really good insight. Okay, anybody else? Anything at all?
This is the first time I've heard of WBS or and the RACI matrix too. So that's helpful. Thanks for talking more about that.
Okay. And then what I do have is I do have these resources, so I have examples of everything here. And so I can actually share screen, and I could actually share what these things look like. And then Christina, I could definitely send these to you.
Can
Um,
you
so that
can you
way
share something on the RACI
you want to go for it.
RACI
Just
metrics?
okay, go for it, Mickey.
No, I want you to share something on RACI metrics. That's what I'm
Oh,
requesting.
yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so here is the racing matrix right here. And so at the bottom here, what I love about it is it gives you the guide for abbreviations, right? So R, who's responsible? The person who actually owns a project, task, or work. An example would be the project manager. There should be only one responsible, it says R, but responsible person for each activity, but no activity should be missing a responsible person. More than one R is calling an overlap. So then accountable, the person who will sign off on the work and judging its completion and how it meets quality standards. This could be the project sponsor or whomever has final sign off authority. Consultant, this could be the person with the ability of knowledge needed to complete the work. This can be the stakeholders, it could be the subject matter experts, or anyone else that is completing the work. And then inform people who must be kept informed of the work, but not necessarily consultant. They also list an S for supports. Um, and some groups include a category S for supports in a variation called, and again, RACI with the SCI chart, supporting personnel or groups provide resources for a task to be performed. And then it even goes down and it breaks it down as an instruction, right? Identify all the processes, activities, and list them down, etc. So then here is the example. So up here, you just, again, project department, maybe the phasing construct, um, and then what is a status? And then right here is the tasks and deliverables. And then to your point, Mickey, they even have a work breakdown structure code. So if you were to have your work breakdown structure, you could actually link it to this as well, depending on how you want to construct that project management approach. And then here's the task. So at the end of the day, this is the tasks or deliverables, and then you can see going across here the role name for each one of these. So then you're capturing who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, and the ideas for each one of these tasks or deliverables. So that way, and the whole purpose is to make sure that, um, as you're completing these tasks, there's no uh, there's no question of who's accountable for that task, who is responsible for that task, and the idea here is that you're telling people before they start the project, right? So then everybody has their marching orders, for lack of a better way to say it, and then they're off to the races.
Yeah, so
Here,
I must appreciate the format. This is very crystal clear, and what we normally call in our line of work is basically responsibility metrics. So this is that is also another name for this format, and I must appreciate this is a very well defined format that way. If I need to have your presentation in this, where can I find this? Is there a link that you can share on the email once you finish this?
yes, there will be, and then what I'm gonna do is, since I have your names, what I'll do is I will also email you a link. Um, and then Mickey, you're here at the University of Arizona, correct? So
Yes.
okay, so and I know Christina, so I'll make sure that you guys link into our box, um, UA box, and that's where I'll have all these templates.
Thank
So
you. That will be very helpful.
okay, yeah, it'll be beyond just the racy, but I have a bunch of stuff in there. And all of this stuff, just so you know, I don't know if you are Mickey, but I'm a paying member of PMI. And so they give us a lot of these resources to use.
I used to be long time back, because I passed out sometime in 2004, and I used to be a member of the PMI, but then it is a bit challenging for me to maintain because I'm studying so many things.
No, no,
So
no.
I
Yeah,
have,
I just started, so but I liked some of the resources that they provide, and then I'm part of the
that's
Tucson chapter
I
too.
mean
So
they have really good resources. I mean
mhm.
I find project management as one of the most practical studies ever done. Even it is
Well,
as good as physics. I mean, this is what I rate it as good as
wow.
physics, because I've read a book which allowed me to understand all the. There used to be 13 areas of knowledge when I studied it. I don't know how many are there. Are there still 13?
I want to say I think it's 13. That
Okay,
sounds
so
right.
I yeah, so there were 13 areas of knowledge, and that book allowed me to understand the implementation of all the 13 areas right from the very first stage of project inception. And we used to write the project, what do you call, the very project charter. Right from that place till the delivery, all 13 areas, how exactly are implemented at each stage. And that is what was remarkable. A lot of time people understand project management as a line of progression or kind of a workflow, but this is not how it is. All the 13 areas are implementable at every single stage. If you get that kind of an understanding, it's amazing. You can use it anywhere, even in your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And that's why like it's like the approach is transcending across anything that we do, right? Anything, like I was thinking about it, it's like anything we do, just like you just said, like if I'm going to take a trip, you're doing some level of planning. It may not be
Yes.
formal like this. You may not be capturing it and bringing in the whole family around a screen and like going and flipping through, and giving them a confirmation brief on the trip, but you're doing some level of planning. We just,
The best thing I get to learn about this is basically how to communicate. Uh,
yes.
that's the best thing which happened to me because and another best thing about was as a project manager or as a program manager, I was always aware about risk. Always. So the way it is said in project management is that cost should be on your right hand and the risk should be on your left hand back. This is how we operate. So these are the two things which we as a project manager or as a leader, you always have to be aware. And this is what I inculcated in my real life, also in my day-to-day life. Even when I'm walking on the road, I'm aware what could possibly go wrong if the driver coming in the opposite direction, where exactly is he looking? So this has gone into that extent for me at least. So I'm always very cautious, very uh, kind of a safe, favorable person. That is what I've become. So this has
No,
allowed me to go to that extent. It was all
Ricky, I
after I
love.
learned about risk management.
No, I love it. So one of the things that I talk about during my leadership session is that there's three. I just think there's three important things that leaders need to be doing on a daily basis, and they provide guidance. You just hit on it. They manage risk for the organization, and they make decisions. Those are the three things that leaders are doing like on a daily basis. And and if they're not doing it, then maybe the team isn't getting the direction that they need. Um, Again, the risk, like what are the risks for the organization? It can't be operating today for tomorrow. I mean, you're looking into the horizon. How do I remove all risk or as many as I can, or how do I mitigate them for the team not to have any slowdown in accomplishing the task? So, what you're saying is spot on. I love it.
Another thing I want to add is basically one other very crispy learning that I gained was who are the two biggest risks to any project. So if I look at the very definition of the project, that was also very remarkable learning. Anything that has not been done before has a very clear start, has a very clear end, and there is a process in between. That's the definition of project. If I look at that definition, every day in our life is a project. This is what I learned. And another thing I learned in conjunction with this was um, the biggest risk to any project, and when I say project, I'm talking of any day itself now, are two people, the project manager and the project sponsor. That was also another remarkable learning. Basically, person who owns the project, in your case, as an individual, you own your day, basically. And the project sponsor is the one who has the resources, who's basically asking you to do the project. In a normal person's life, you are also the sponsor of your own self because you own the resources. So it teaches you that you are the center of your universe basically, and you are responsible for everything. If you learn that, basically you get the very sense of responsibility for even getting the output within a day or probably a longer period of time. So that brings a very clear methodology of getting focus and how do you control. on anything that you are doing within a day or probably within a period of time, be it 1, 2, 3, 4 years or number of years. That gives a very clear, clear uh, kind of a method and a process and the components which actually can help you to get that kind of a focus.
Nah, I
So
love
this
it.
is also something I learned from project management.
Yes, and so there's so one of the things that we implement as well is in progress reviews. And the
Yeah,
reason for those in progress reviews is that it is a forcing function to get the stakeholder, right, involved in the planning process or in the execution of the project to make sure that they we give as a team, we're giving that stakeholder the opportunity to provide guidance, manage risk, and make decisions. And that is the way we empower those leaders as well. And then you as a project manager, well, you're brokering that, you're making that a reality, and understanding the importance of that guidance, the management of the risk from that stakeholder, and those key decisions that need to be made. But Mickey, yeah, you're spot on. This is great, really good. Thank you for all that insight, as it's extremely critical and relevant. Um, that's
sure, you're
great.
welcome.
Can you, sorry to not derail you too much, but could you talk a little, you mentioned just now in progress reviews. Could you talk a little bit more about what that means? So like
Yeah,
letting them know what progress has been made and like what the plan is going forward or what is,
yeah, okay. No, that's a great question, Christina. So the way my method is, let's just say we have a key milestone right on the timeline, and it's due, let's just say 1 April. So I already know that it needs to be done, right? It's a key milestone that we all as a project team and as stakeholders, et cetera, we said this needs to be done by 1 April. Well, I don't want to wait till 1 April to then send an email to the stakeholder to tell them, hey, we didn't meet the time. 1 April, yeah, sorry about that. We're gonna have to push it out a couple weeks. So the idea of the in progress review is to do it, say, you know, before, maybe 2 weeks prior, maybe it's three, maybe it's a month out. And the idea is to communicate, as Mickey was saying, like the communication piece is again the thing that a project manager, I feel, brokers, is you bring in the entire team to then brief where they're at in the accomplishment of that milestone. So that way, if there is going to be a delay, the stakeholder knows 2 weeks prior. And that's just like professional courtesy to that stakeholder. So that's kind of the why to do it. But more importantly, it's to keep the project team on track, focused. And like Mickey was talking about, like, being very crystal clear, etc. But like saying, like, I want the team to be crystal clear, making sure we're hitting these milestones and delivering on time. The practical way to do that, like, how do you, like, what is the practical way to do that? And that's in progress reviews. In progress reviews forces a team to stop where they're at, to assess where they're at, communicate if they have any issues delivering. Um, and Christina, I do have examples of in progress reviews. So what I use is a simple quad chart that states what have they done, up until say in the next 2 weeks, or the last 2 weeks up to this point. What are they planning to do in the next couple weeks? What are their concerns? And then any challenges that they may have. So then that way they're able to communicate. The team feels like they're being listened to, but it's not about a feeling, it's about an action. Like, we are doing this so we can take action on those challenges and concerns to keep the project moving. Um, so, but Christine, to answer your question, I actually have, I could pull one up. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if that would be useful for you all, if I were to pull up a in progress review.
I mean, that would be useful for me, mostly just because like, I mean, I'm doing some of this. It's just having a more structured way to do some of it would probably be helpful. So yeah, sorry, I don't mean to like derail your
No, no, no. You
planned
know what,
presentation, but and
Christina?
sorry if
No,
you covered this already. I didn't realize you were doing this series. So,
no, no. It's this is part of it. And it's one of those things where I just feel like I'm here to help you all. Like that's like I'm here to serve you all in best way I can. And when you guys have these questions, this is relevant to you all. So then therefore I want to deliver it because it's like you're asking for it. You're like I need to know what this looks like. So I mean it's great. It's actually fantastic actually. I love it.
appreciate that. Appreciate your time.
I just let me pull this one down because I really want to show you this one. Um,
Meanwhile, you're searching, can I add something to it?
yes.
Okay. So in my view, the communication comes under the communication plan, which is one of the knowledge areas of the PMBOK or project management. And this is one of the most risky areas of any project. And reason why we call this as one of the most risky is because if the communication goes wrong, besides the fact that everything is in place, this is one of the most sensitive thing which can actually derail the project. So and the way I see this as a communication is something like driving a car from one point to another point. And in this case, the communication happens in a real time, like you are tracking the road itself and everything that is happening on the road. And not only are you looking into it, but everyone in the car who's sitting and is on the way to the project end, they have to be informed. So normally in case of a car, everybody looks on the road through the windshield. But in case of a project where there is no such physical road or path, the path is actually seen through the project plan. It
Hmm.
is the responsibility of the project manager to make sure that everybody is aware where they are going. And the reason that needs to be done is because a lot of time people are wearing seatbelt, they are not wearing seatbelts. Anytime if they are informed in advance that this is what is coming, they get to manage the jerk or the challenge that they are going to come across in advance. So it is kind of a one of the most critical things, which is basically something which can derail the project in very small period of time, very uh, or very uh, s- sensitive. Okay, let me not use the word sensitive here. Something if it is not done correctly, even a small mistake or a miscommunication can actually create a new tangent, which then has to be put an effort and brought into a line, which will either waste your time, money, and effort. But if it is done on a continuous basis, the team works as a single body and they are able to deal with the risks and the unknown scenarios which are coming to everybody in the project from different directions. That is how important this is in terms of communication. And there should always be a very well defined communication plan. This is one of the most important plans which is defined at the very time of after the project charter is created. So this is one of the first plans that I personally create, because how will people be informed about what is happening at a larger level, and how will they communicate back to the communication backbone towards the rest of the people so that everybody is well aware about what is happening. This is
Hmm.
what I understand as a communication plan. And the topic you mentioned is this is how eventually the tracking of the project is done in a live kind of an environment.
Yep.
Because since I come from a background where we are working on a nationwide projects, so we don't even get to meet people, and there are roughly like hundreds of people. Like I have, as one of the project program managers, I normally deal with roughly 100 plus people. There are three more teams which have more than those numbers, so roughly like 500 plus people working together. That is how basically every minute and the major piece of information is exchanged in this large group. So this is what communication and the live tracking and is done effectively.
All right, thank you, Mickey. So I'm going to share a screen of this in progress review. Um, yeah, I don't know if you guys could see that, uh, but it just this here's the agenda. So what I do is the purpose of the in progress review, and again, this is an actual project that I'm working on, is to provide updates to stakeholders on project tasks and milestones to remain transparent, align resources, and receive feedback from stakeholders on progress. So that's really the purpose right up front. Um, and I don't know if you're maybe picking up on some of this stuff, but every single uh, meeting should have a purpose, why you're having it, and should have an agenda. And I'm big on that. So this is no different. In progress review, here's your purpose, here's your agenda. So then the agenda, we're going to be going through all these things, and there's representatives that are going to be updating this. So I, as a project manager, am getting their input into this. So as a team, we're building this. This isn't me, Rudy Salcido, as a project manager, and I'm like keep punching this. What my job was to set them up in this format and then draw out the things that we need, i.e., an update. So like I'm just gonna show you this one slide here, but the idea is like tasks that have been accomplished. They list them, they talk to them. Any future tasks. And this is to make sure that they understand and the stakeholders tracking, hey, okay, I get it. I see where we're going with this, or I need to give rudder steer. Concerns and any challenges. So this allows the team members to be able to present in a way to the stakeholders that, like, hey, this is where we're at. But there's no surprises. So you want an informed stakeholder because you don't want surprises. They don't want surprises. And if there's something that's coming up, it's better to tell them you're not going to meet something in advance rather than the day that it is supposed to be delivered. Um, so, Mickey, I mean, what do you agree with that statement? Right? You rather a stakeholder rather know in advance that something's not going to be delivered, but then have a plan to deliver it on a date rather than telling them the day that it's supposed to be delivered that it ain't going to be delivered.
Precisely, yes. So these are the four areas that we have, and normally, uh, if you have a very good crispy piece of information, you also add the WBS IDs to these tasks so that people can actually go back. So very large systems, the WBS are being tracked on the automated system, but you can track it on an Excel sheet also. So this will allow people to actually go back and relate to the actual WBS task itself. And most of the time, the deliverables can be either hardware, software, or manpower, which are related to the WBS. And if you have WBSs here in this report, that will allow people to go back and relate to the precise task and get their own learning related to the definition of the task itself.
Yeah, that's correct. And so, and then like one of the things I do here is like, okay, like tasks accomplished. These tasks shouldn't be things that just pop up. These tasks should have already been thought about before we started the project to keep everybody in line. Now I get it. Not every task is going to be is probably going to be identified. And there's going to be some tasks, but it shouldn't be the whole thing be rewritten either. Um, so then you could see here, you're like, well, there's a planning horizon overview. So and there's a review project timeline, and and then I have stakeholder comments, etc. So the idea here is after they give their update, then I provide an overarching project update. Hey, this is where we say we're supposed to be at today. We're on track, or we're running behind, whatever the case may be. And then the plan horizon overview, that's a snapshot of like these are the things we have for the rest of the fiscal year. So what I try to do is like if you look at some of the stuff that I have, I'm gonna go out. I push stuff out all the way out to the end of Like, here's my planning horizon for this particular project. So what I do is I push this all the way out to when the MVP is supposed to be accomplished. So I'm not only tracking like today for tomorrow. No, I'm tracking into the future. So everybody is getting the big picture all the time. And I don't change this much. The only thing I'm changing is if if we're running into issues where we need to add an additional in progress review because things do happen, right? And so you gotta change. But having this allows, it gives you a point of reference to pivot from, rather than you having to react completely blind. So that's what this allows you to do, and it keeps everybody on track because the team is tracking exactly where we're at. So when changes are made, they're not disruptive, and this goes right back to the human dynamics of a team. When changes are occurring too rapidly, and not with a lot of notice, your team starts to be impacted, whether we know that or not. We are leading humans, and we're managing Gantt charts, the WBS, timelines. Those are those things that we're managing, but we're leading humans. So like this is where this comes into play, where it's very important you're leading humans and that they understand the bigger picture, that there is a plan, and that we have brought order to chaos. And in a nutshell, that's what I feel we do as project managers, also known as people managers. Probably heard that before, just to play on PM. But the idea is that uh, you have a roadmap. Okay, Christina or anybody else, any questions about um, the in progress review?
Oh, that was really helpful. Thanks for showing that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And Christina, I have all these templates for you, so I don't want you to ever think, and anybody on this call, I don't ever want anybody to think that they're alone. Just shoot me a note. I'm part of the team as far as I'm concerned. So use me in that regard. Rudy, I need that template. Rudy, I'm working on this. Hey, I have a quick question. Like, and that's something that we've created as part of the project management community here at the University of Arizona. Like, there's some that I think we were up to 85, I think, project managers that were entitled, like in their titles here at the U of A. And so we actually have a community. And anytime that we have any questions, we ping each other. So, and I'd offer that to you all. Okay, let me get back to. Okay, folks, I'm just checking time. We're at 10:49. Just I'm not gonna necessarily rush. We have time. Okay, so this right here is just a it's just a quick purpose and agenda, um, for an actual stand up. But one of the things I put up here is for all meetings. So not every single meeting you're gonna have stand up questions, or you're not gonna have, say, in progress review questions. Maybe you're not gonna have necessary ground rules. Um, but the minimum is that you should have the purpose of why you're doing the meeting, why you're conducting it. And in this case, for a stand up, this is right out of the Agile, um, reference that I put up when I reviewed the references, right from PMI. And they talk about, the purpose of a stand up meeting is to uncover problems and ensure workflow smoothly throughout the team. And then the agenda example. So what I do here is, um, generally speaking, 15 minutes. You shouldn't be spending any more than 15 minutes for a stand up. And that's going to be, the project manager, maybe the scrum master, whoever it is, probably utilizing some kind of software tool that is for project managers, or to track project, um, methodologies, etc. And like Jira, Notion, you've probably heard of Asana, Teams. I mean, there's so many out there. Monday, whatever it may be. Maybe that's what the PM opens up with. Maybe some comments and then maybe a quick review where they're at. Um, maybe the Scrum Master says, no, we're going to go with teams A, B, and C first, and then I'll close out doing, going over maybe Jira, Notion, Asana, etc. Just to say like, hey, this is where we're at. Whatever that may be, you want to spend no more than 15 minutes. And the idea here is these questions. What did the team complete in the last stand up, or since the last stand up? And then what is the team going to plan to accomplish between this stand up that we're completing to the next one? And then are there any issues, essentially roadblocks that's going to keep any one of these teams from accomplishing their tasks? And then if there is an identified problem, risk, etc., it needs to be noted, but we're not going to do the deep dive in this meeting. We're going to note it, and then we're going to be like, Team B, Team Bravo, we're going to go ahead and we're going to meet on that particular issue that you're having, and I'll put it on the schedule, and we'll meet and we'll resolve it. And then boom, we're moving on. And then here's some of the ground rules right here, right? Like we talked about, is just making sure that it is held outside the meeting, so that way the stand up doesn't get drowned out by those issues. They're identified, and then we move on. 15 minutes tops, you're done. But again, this goes back to what I just put up for the in progress review. Maybe there is the kickoff meeting, right? There's the kickoff meeting is going to happen once. The idea is it happens at the beginning of the project, right? So, and the way I have laid out when that project kickoff meeting goes is it's after the planning is conducted. You do your planning, then you capture your project charter or your project plan, and now you're ready to do a kickoff meeting. Whatever meeting that you have should have that purpose and agenda. Does anybody have any questions about that? I don't care if it's a stand-up meeting or any meeting that maybe you've conducted. Or let me ask this: is there any other methods that you're currently using that you say, hey, this has been proven effective, that I'm not talking about here with respect to just organizing a meeting? Okay. And the other thing with meetings, um, the agenda should never typically, unless it's a one-off meeting, recurring meetings should have a set agenda. And the reason I say that is because in projects, you don't want to keep your people guessing. We don't want to play those games, right? You want to have your people in an anticipatory mindset. They're anticipating what they need to brief. They're anticipating what the next thing is going to be. Um, and I'm not saying that, we're going to be reading the crystal ball and we know exactly what's going to happen, but you should be anticipating what's going to be happening into the future. Um, and so therefore, you don't want people guessing every time they show up to a meeting, what are we going to talk about? That everybody knows what you're going to talk about, because that's what you set as a recurring uh, agenda item or meeting. And then what is the agenda and that purpose? It should never change. That's the idea. So that way people are prepared when they show up. That is the idea. You don't want people being caught off guard either. Okay, any questions, anything at all?
Yeah, I want to add one thing. As a
Go for it,
project
Mickey.
manager, yeah, as a project manager, always be aware that there will be a lot of people in the team who will feel hesitant to share, especially to highlight problems in the risk. So as a project manager, this is what I learned quite later in my profession, that as a project manager, it is my duty to ask the intriguing questions, especially to the people who I know who are hesitant and often get scared about sharing the problem and risk. And they are the biggest risk to the project, because If they don't share the information at the right point in time, the mitigation cannot be done. So as a project manager, you have to be proactive to ask intriguing questions to, in fact, everybody, especially on the topics which are related to the risks, and make the team very comfortable so that people should be in an open environment, that they will not be penalized when they are sharing a problem or a risk. In fact, they should be appreciated. Then this is something which has to be deliberately done. People have to be appreciated when they are sharing a problem or a risk because they help the whole team. This is very critical in these meetings.
So Mickey, this is great. It's like we're complimenting each other on this stuff. Um, During my leadership session, I talk about creating a culture of success. And as a leader, as an approach, a leadership approach, I talk about humility, authenticity, and having a positive mental attitude. And humility is the thing that what you're talking about, because I talk about these things, right? And a lot of times it's like, well, how do we do that? How do we create that culture that allows a team member to do exactly what you just said, that they're comfortable, that they're part of the family, they're part of the team. Um, and that's part of it, right? Is if the minute you have team members going silent, you have a problem in your team. And what happens is a lot of times we look at the team member as the problem, but in fact, it's you as the leader that is the problem. And so these are those approaches that I talk about during my leadership session that set you up for exactly what you're talking about, Mickey, which is beautiful that you even mentioned that. Thank you for bringing it up because it is a very real human dynamic within teams. And if the culture is not cultivated and is not established, then you're going to have silent team members. And so beautiful. There's, thank you so much, Mickey, for bringing that up. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay. So this is generative AI for project managers example. Very basic. Um, I'm probably going to have to make it a little bit more complex or dynamic, if you will. But I wanted to start out with something very simple. And in this case, what I want to do is just talk about a few things. So generative AI tool, it's the mindset is like, oh, well, nowadays, generative AI tool, it can have negative connotation. Why are you using it? Things like that. And the way I look at it is, and the way we view it here at Data Science Institute, we have one of our um, educators on the call, Dr. Carlos Lizaraga, and we have a lot of discussions around this, and so using it as an assistant is probably the best way and best approach. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm sure some of you have heard human in the loop. Um, the human needs to be engaged to validate whatever response you receive from that particular generative AI tool. And matter of fact, Dr. Lizaraga, he's the one that put me onto this reference here that I have listed here for prompt engineering basics. And it talks about these four things, right? The instruction, the context, the input data, and then the output indicator. And so, with that instruction, like having a specific task or instruction you want the model to perform, the context, what is that external information or is there additional context that you want to provide? And one of the things here is like be cautious to uploading sensitive information as it will become public data, and then input data, the input or question that we are interested to find a response for. And then the last part is the type or format of the output. Um, Dr. Lizaraga, do you have any comments maybe about the context bullet there about your sensitive information being public once you upload it or ingest it in one of these things?
Yeah, so whenever you're using a commercial platform, whatever information you upload to ask the model to give you some feedback. That information trains the new model, and somebody else may ask some question, and part of your information may be part of their responses to other people. So it's advisable not to upload any sensitive information, especially um, intellectual property of your company or your enterprise. So you have to be very careful.
Okay, thank you. So here's just a simple prompt that I actually used, and I did use ChatGPT for this particular one. I just the prompt was, I am a program manager here at the U of A. I've been assigned a new project for automating a telescope process that is currently manually operated. What are the key questions and consideration I need to account for in preparation for my first meeting with the stakeholders? And then I specifically said from Space 4. And I said, please provide the output in written form, and please provide an output in a table with key questions and a table for considerations highlighting key aspects of this type of project. And I'll be totally transparent. The written form that came out, it was like a regurgitation of my prompt. But what it did do is provide me two tables. And so those tables, if in fact that's what I needed, and I'm walking in to an unknown project, and I'm unaware, and I actually, this was a real situation, but I didn't do the prompt, right? But I probably should have. Then, and so this is why I want to put it to the forefront that as project managers, we can use this as a tool to help us, at least walk in, uh, maybe crawling, but you're not totally blind. So, like, for instance, here's that first table that it provided me. So, like, some key questions. It's like, what are the primary goals of the automation project? And then description, define the main objectives, such as enhancing operational efficiency, improving data accuracy, or enabling remote operation. And then what specific telescope processes are targeted or for automation. So all these kind of things. And what was good is that when we actually went and executed the very first meeting with the stakeholders, a lot of this was answered anyway. But it would have been nice to at least have this before I went in there. And then the next table that it provided me was these key considerations. So, like, integration with existing systems. What is the system reliability? Is there training needs? Data security, stakeholder engagement, compliance and standards. Some of this could be applicable, but it would be up to you to, as the human in the loop, to be like, that's good. No, maybe I won't ask that question. Oh, maybe that's a sensitive one. We don't want to bring that up. Like, those are those things that you would engage with this output. But that would be the idea. Does anybody have any questions before I move off of say the generative AI tool example? Let me ask this. Um, does do you use a generative AI tool on a regular basis for your day to day, or maybe for writing papers, or maybe for just trying to figure something out, maybe in a project that you're currently working on, or anything?
No, I have not been using, but this is very interesting. This is something which I come across for the very first time. I never gave a thought that this can also be done in terms of project management. This is something that I learned today.
Okay, good. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I use it every day as an assistant.
Okay. All right, awesome.
I don't
Okay.
intentionally, but I'm not sure that this is the right time to get into that, the reasons why. So, yeah.
No, I get it, Christina, and that is what I wanted to hear too. Like, this is good. I understand. Like, that's really good. Obviously, here at the Data Science Institute, we want to utilize it, but in a way that is complementary in what we're doing. But we're not trying to get controversial about it. But Christina, I'm with you. I understand, and that's why I wanted to hear that as well. Good. Okay. I'm going to get into expectation management. So some of the stuff that we've talked about up to this point, um, like project management, at the end of the day, it's not the end all be all, but it's a way, it's a method, um, to be able to track your tasks, milestones, um, schedules, any critical dates, overall project timeline. You can see with that second one there, managing resources and your budget costs, something that Mickey talked about, in his experience as well. And then helps with communication across stakeholders, the project management team, and then the project team itself. And then helps with facilitating collaboration and timely accomplishment of tasks. And I really feel it does these things for us. And so, but there's limitations. And so, what are they? And, you know, just because we have project management methodology in place doesn't mean that's going to substitute effective leadership. So that goes back to, again, that point that Mickey was bringing up with a person within the team bringing up a risk or a problem, right? You, that it project management, we could be perfect and doing it to the T, but if we don't have the effective leadership to draw out the best in our people, well, it's not going to be effective, and it's not a substitute. It's not going to make that a reality for us. It'll help at least set us up for success, but it may not take us to the finish line. Proper planning. I'm a big proponent about planning, thinking before doing, uh, understanding what you're trying to solve before you actually start executing, um, whatever solution that you think you have in your mind, but like really thinking about it. And that proper planning is huge. And project management doesn't do that for us. A lot of times, what I've seen in practice is like, say, a Gantt chart, maybe a racing matrix, maybe whatever. Pull out any of those templates that we talked about. We start filling it out, and everybody feels good because we did something. But the reality is that's not planning. Um, and so the other piece is it doesn't substitute sound judgment. You as a human still need to be part of that decision making cycle. You still need to be able to provide that guidance and manage risk for that organization. Um, the idea would be project manager is going to help you at least see these things clearer, but you still need to be that person in the loop to make those decisions, manage the risk, um, and make those decisions. Um, this obviously doesn't substitute decision making across the project team. That takes that effective leadership as well to make sure that this is being done in a efficient manner. I always put up the project management triangle here because I think it's extremely important that scope, time, and cost. You're always going to be um, negotiating yourself through those three things to then be able to say, okay, here's going to be the quality in whatever we're going to be delivering to the stakeholder, and that is that constant communicate between you, the project team, and those stakeholders, or stakeholder if it's only one person. So this
Can I
is,
add one? Can I add one more thing before you move ahead?
yeah,
So
absolutely. Mickey, go for it, please.
another very important thing is most of the time the project team understands that they have got nothing to do with the project management. It is the project manager who's doing the project management. So that's a very elusive thought. If the team or if the team leader or the project manager can communicate and make everybody understand that every task they are doing practically is not done before and it's very well defined under the project definition itself, and that is the very definition of the project itself. Technically, everybody who's working on that project is doing a project management in their own area itself. And if they are able to take that kind of understanding and responsibility, that's when the whole ecosystem change. And that is what will allow the team members to contribute to the best of it, best towards the whole community or the team. And this is a very common misleading learning that people have, that we have got nothing to do with the project management. Whereas just because they are doing a task which has not been done with before, which is the very definition of the project, they don't realize they are doing actually a project uh, with the every task itself. And if they are able to understand this, that's the best ecosystem, and that's the best way of making people understand and relating them to the project management. This is what the definition of the project is, and this is what you're doing, and this is precisely meeting the definition of a project. And you are actually doing, and you are very well a part of the project management. So the more you learn, more you understand, the better team grows. So if
Very,
that can be done, that's one easy way of for a project manager to actually help the project team to come along on board.
yeah, perfect. That's good, Mickey. Thank you for that. Does anybody have any other questions before we move on? Anything or comments, anything? Okay. So this is, again, this is kind of bringing it all together from, the past sessions, is bringing it all together here. Um, and the idea here is that, again, what are those three things that leaders are doing? They're providing guidance, they manage risk, and they make decisions. And then there is this leadership piece, that leaders have a good, solid rapport with their direct reports. And what I talked about in my first session is humility, having that authenticity of yourself, being comfortable in your own skin, and then having that positive mental attitude generates that momentum to be able to then go from, into initiating processes, whatever that planning process is, executing because you're doing project management, all the way to a successful project. And the idea here is being consistent, being persistent, having the energy and the patience, because dealing, and it is what it is, leading humans, dealing with deliverables and tasks and timelines, etc. It takes patience. It's not easy. The way I look at it is, every project manager in your own right, whether you're a project manager, program manager, because you have multiple projects that you're managing, it's leadership. You are in a leadership position, and you are that honest broker, as far as I'm concerned, of making sure stakeholders are contributing, and then that you are rallying the rest of the team around what tasks need to be accomplished, etc., along a timeline. But you are leading that entire effort. So key takeaways, again, um, as the project lead, what, are you the scrum master? Are you the project manager? Are you the program manager? Like, you are tracking the way this particular project, whatever you've been assigned, is progressing the way it should be. Um, and then project management does not think for you, and this is part of what I keep saying is, you still have to have that knowledge domain coming to the table to be able to apply the solutions to the problems you're trying to solve. And then understanding before doing is continuous throughout the planning and during execution. And again, this goes back to, um, my second session of my workshop about planning. There's going to be times as you're going through the planning process, now you're in execution. You may find that you have to go back to the planning uh, board to be able to say, okay, um, yeah, we have a new problem, we have a new challenge, and this is going to cause us to do planning again, to make sure that we're thinking about this correctly before we move out smartly as an entire team. So that's why I say this is it's continuous. So I want to get into discussion, but before I do, everything we've covered up to this point, any comments, any other maybe questions you may have, anything at all?
I have
Okay.
one.
Okay, Christina, go for it.
So most of the researchers that we work with, I think, are fairly unfamiliar with any like concepts of project management. What pieces of these do you suggest like starting with? Because it's like what you said before, it's like a lot. And you can't do it all at once. So what do you think are the like the best low-hanging fruit for improving projects where you're working with researchers?
So Christina, so far, and I know since I've been here, the number one thing is just putting a plan together, thinking about the problem you're trying to solve, right? As simple as that may sound. So like putting together just a project plan will then it allows whatever you're working on come alive. And then you're able to use, say, again, I would argue that you don't want to start off with, say, a Gantt chart. Like I don't want to give you a template and say, well, start with this. What I would tell you is start with the plan, like what, like really thinking about what you're trying to accomplish and capturing it on paper in the way you do it as a team. So here I've captured plans on PowerPoint, but I always transition them into a written document. The reason being is because we're in academia and that's the way we communicate a lot here. So it's whatever your team is comfortable with. Other teams here, even here at Data Science Institute, if it's a smaller project, they like using Google Docs, right? So then they'll capture that so they can collaborate. Um, Whatever it is, what I say is the plan, and I could work with you on that, or anything, that's been my message, is that planning is the number one thing that I feel we can improve across the board. And I will tell you this, you're like, well, really, that's all you guys did in the military or something like that. Somebody could look at that through that lens. Well, I'll tell you, not all the time, right? So people would like to cut corners because that's who we are as humans. We think we have the solution right off the top of our heads, so we're just going to go get it. The reality is, once you slow down and really get to 10,000 feet and look at the bigger picture and then start really thinking through it, there's a lot of stuff that come out. Um, it's like if you, like right now, I say, hey, we're going to hold another meeting and I'm going to have refreshments there. It sounds easy, but now I have to find the venue. Now I have to do all the logistics. I got to find the funding to be able to get those refreshments purchased. Then I got to think about what refreshments am I going to bring? Is there going to be any little snacks that I'm going to want? Oh, then I have to worry about, you know, um, is anybody just, like my daughter, yeah, she can only get, she has to be gluten free. So like I got to be thinking about dietary issues as well, or limitations. So planning to me is like the very first start. And I know it's a long-winded answer, but it's because I understand the complexity here, because we're fighting a culture as well. Um, and then Christina, Malika. So me and Malika always have these conversations as well, because it's a culture here of like, how do we look at problems, and then how do we set up researchers for success when it comes to their own projects. And I find that having a solid plan up front, everything else flows from that. I don't know if that helps, but it's kind of my long-winded answer to that.
Can I add?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, Christine, if you are looking for learning all these areas which are discussed in this, my simple suggestion will be pick up any document or probably any video which should only list the areas of knowledge, the 13 areas of knowledge. And then second task you can do is basically pick up which are most relevant, which you find relevant. So I'll tell you one thing. There is a sequence, basically, these knowledge areas are very well defined in, which you can use to learn. If you can learn, good enough. But if you cannot, because of a shortage of time, the best and the quickest way that I use basically is pick up a book, identify the TOC, that's table of contents, and then identify what I understand very easily right now. And once I start reading that topic, that topic will allow me to figure out the branches and go into the next chapters and give me enough insight to figure out and relate to the next different chapters itself. That's the way easiest that you can begin with a very small scope of learning, but eventually it will give you enough points that you can know that this is something that will be of use to you, and you can point to at any point in future, basically, that this is something that you can identify, this is something that I need to learn. So you can continue creating a list, a live list of what you need to read ahead and complete your knowledge. So besides the planning, as he mentioned, planning is something that is very commonly used. But if you need to know and learn this whole subject of a project management, start with the list of the knowledge areas and pick up something which comes easiest to you. And if you have to take a start, if you don't have any specific start, then I'll request you to read the project charter or the project scoping, because that's the very beginning of it. So that's the starting of the thread.
Cool. Thanks for the suggestion. Yeah, I was already starting to look at the knowledge areas because you mentioned that earlier. And yeah, to what you said, Rudy, I mean, I guess I feel some comfort. We do some parts of this already. I'm just kind of looking to refine and improve and things like that. And so, yeah, we do already like make people do a project plan before we start working with them on anything.
Okay.
So yeah.
And
But-
then I could also share the project management body of knowledge as well, which will break down those knowledge areas. I want to say, and Mickey, I was just looking, I think it's 10 knowledge areas now. They changed it to 10, but we'll confirm. I just want to make sure that yeah, that's good. The knowledge areas are, yeah, that'd be a good start point.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about. And one more thing, Christine, also be clear what is the difference between a project plan and a project schedule. A lot of time people confuse schedule as a plan. What was mentioned here as a plan is basically about the different areas which are related to the task and in the project that needs to be done. Though that is plan, schedule is very often confused and as a plan itself. So be clear on that also when you're training, or basically when you're talking about with your team members, not to use these words interchangeably, because then they lose the very crispier piece of information.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anything else, Christina, or anybody else on the team? Okay, cool.
One point of a discussion which
Okay.
I want to learn from you, since you said you come from military, I find two organizations very intriguing in using project management. One is Army, the another one is movie making industry, and I see them as a contrast. So I want to learn something from you in very brief, because definitely there is a limit of time, and I would use this opportunity, since you are from that organization and you are using project management. So I see Army is an organization which is very well trained, very well disciplined. But if I look at the movie industry, which is absolutely contrast, but they also have capability of using project, and in fact they use project management to deliver project as big as billions of dollars in a very short span of time, years basically, and they have hundreds and thousands of people working. I want to understand in Army, how does the project management is used on a day-to-day life? Do they really use and study and they teach it into the normal training basically, or is it basically starts from the discipline and then something as a subject is taught? Because in movie making industry, it is all about practice. That is what my learning is. And the reason I'm asking this question is because I want to understand how to communicate and how to teach project management to anyone. So I find these two organizations very contrasting, and they are the food for thought for me when it comes to training project management to someone, especially in movie making industry, people who are not well trained and there is no discipline, but there is a process. And an Army where the discipline is the bottom line and is taught first, and then everything is taught followed on. So I want to understand from you how it is done or taught in the and used in Army basically.
Okay, so Hey, that's long. Okay, I don't want to get too long-winded, but I'll just tell you this. So, because I think it'll make the point. Um, well, I was in the Marines, so Army does have every one of our services has a different planning process, but we all have a planning process. Ours in the Marine Corps is called the Marine Corps planning process. I joined the Marine Corps in 1992. I got to my first unit in 1993. I've been planning since 1993. I was a young troop, and ever since, as a young Marine, I was already exposed to a planning process. And at the lower level, when I went in, um, at the lower levels, we call this thing called SMEAC, situation, what is the mission, execution, admin logistics, command and signals. So if I were to break those down to you, we'd actually have a good solid plan. And as I grew and as I continued to increase my responsibility, um, then I became an officer, made it to the rank of lieutenant colonel. When I was a young major, I went to a schoolhouse where I taught captains that had been in the Marine Corps for about 10, 12 years at that point, the planning process. It was a year-long school. So in the military, we take it very serious. And so the idea is that we try to do the same thing the same way every single time. And I also um, did work as an operations officer for a very large um, uh, unit where we use a rapid response uh, planning process as well. And so that is being able to execute a level of planning to be able to execute things within 6 hours. And I'm talking some of the stuff could be complex. So, but the idea is that it's ingrained in everything we do. And so that is a definite culture piece of what we would, the way I would view planning. And like I said, I've been planning since 1993. I'm not just making that up. That's real. And so, um, and then I've been exposed to different levels of planning throughout my career, from two-man operations all the way to large scale operations. So it's it's part of what we do. And so and it's yeah, so a lot of some of the stuff that you see here, like a Gantt chart, we have something that looks like a Gantt chart that we use in the military. There's things that look very similar, um, that are not necessarily the same here in the civilian sector, but kind of you could say, oh yeah, that kind of looks like that, and that's what we do. Um, but I will tell you this, Mickey, since I've been out, um, I've been retired now since October 21. I have not found a civilian planning process. If you know of one, let me know. But I haven't seen one, and so I
This,
created one.
so this is what I was intrigued with, because this is something which I find no academic institution thinks it important enough to be included as a part of their curriculum. Because what I find is students, kids, youngsters, and people who are undergrads and grads, they have absolutely no idea how they organize their life, how they organize their day-to-day work, which is why I was very inquisitive. How does Army does it, and how does a very contrasting organization, movie making industry, does it? Because there are a lot of untrained people. When I say untrained, I'm not talking of their training of movie making, but people come from different domains and join a task-based industry. So, which is to make a movie. And correct me if I'm wrong with what I've learned from you right now in your organization also. It is a scenario and a task-based learning. So this is something that works. That is what I'm going to take today basically from your words. So it is a task-based learning that works basically. So you give a scenario, you give a task, and help the the people to plan and think about it, and then organize themselves accordingly.
Yes.
So there is a
Maybe I could work
common.
with you, and I could work with you to show you how it comes to life, because I
I
know a
would.
lot of,
I wish to see that. I wish to see that.
okay. Yeah, because a lot of times when we talk about stuff like this, people stick in theory. Well, I don't like that. I want to know, like, what is
So this is
pragmatic? Yeah.
yeah. This
How
is
can,
one area which I would like to explore, because I this is my effort and my initiative that I wish to take on. How to teach youngsters, kids, to use this and be organized in their life so that they can not only focus on their studies, but they can understand how to use their time and energy in order to learn, as well as be prepared for life, as well as basically divide their energy and resources into sports and other learnings also, so that from the very childhood itself they grow up to be a very mentally balanced individuals, which I find is very challenging for a lot of people when they come into profession.
mm-hmm.
They don't know how to focus and divide their energies into different areas so that they can continue for a very long time without spending their body as well as their mind.
Okay. Love it.
Yeah. So I'll
And
get in touch with you. I would like to understand on that. Please go
no,
ahead.
let's do it. And then I also give my planning session as well. So
Mm,
just so you're tracking, I'm gonna give this entire series again. This is for everybody. The
sure.
9th, 10th, and 11th. And I have it back to back to back. So that way we don't have, like right now I do this first, where we have a few weeks in between each session, and then I do it in rapid succession. So that way, maybe you'll have time to do it towards the latter part of the week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so Thursday of that week, the 10th of April, I'm giving my planning session. And I would love for you to be there for the leadership, all of you, because I think it's a huge tie-in to some of the things that and points we're making today. So okay, we're starting to lose people because we're already 3 minutes over time, but I really appreciate everybody's engagement and you being here. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.